Hello there, you beautiful people, and welcome back. I left you with a bit of a cliffhanger in the last video where you learned all about the basics of piping. Now, in this video, we're going to take what you learned about the basics in the previous video, and in this video, we're going to level it up and teach you some advanced piping techniques. So, with the basic stuff you learned in the last video about just taking the output of one command and piping it directly into the standard input of another, that doesn't leave much room for flexibility. Whereas there's loads of really cool things that you can do with your pipelines if you learn just a few more techniques. So in this video, we're going to go over those advanced piping techniques, and by the end, you know how to make advanced pipelines using the T and Xargs commands. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so let's just have a quick recap of what we did in the last video. So in the last video, we used the date command to get loads of system information about our computer's clock. And what we did was we passed that data into the cut command because we just wanted to cut out the day of the week, which is a Monday. Now, to cut out the day of the week, we have to say that this data is actually broken up into several columns, and each column is separated by a space. Now, another way of saying that is that each column is delimited by a space. That's a fancy word in computer lingo. And so what we did is we gave the cut command a delimiter, and we said the delimiter is a space. Okay, and now once we've said, okay, each column is split up by spaces, which field do we want? Which column do we want? Well, it's the first column. Now, fields in the cut command are called, columns in the cut command are called fields. So we just said fields equals 1. And when we pressed enter, that cuts out Monday. Okay, so that's what we did in the last video. Then I gave you a little bit of a challenge. I said, hey, how can we go about actually saving this information into a file, but at the same time also pass it down into the pipeline? So how can we save it into a file but also pass it down into the cut command so that it can be operated on so we can get Monday out? So we're trying to do two things at once. So to do that, we actually need to have another command called the T command. So let's take a look at how the T command works. So here's an image of how the T command works. Now I've put a link to the original picture in the video resources, but you can see here that we have a pipe between two commands. So here's a command over on the left, and we have another command over here on the right. And in the middle, we're using the T command. Okay, now we haven't covered what these specific commands do. It doesn't actually matter so much. What I want you to focus on is the T command in the middle, and just understand that we're trying to pipe two commands together. Okay, now just like a T-junction in a pipe of water, we can use the T command to cause our data to flow in two directions. We can cause it to flow horizontally as well as flow vertically downwards into other files. You can imagine it working like that. Okay, so the T command allows us to pass the data on to the rest of the pipe, but it also allows us to keep it in a file. Okay, so you can see here that we've got a command on the left that is trying to pipe its data across into another command on the right. In the middle, though, we pipe it through the T command, and the T command, we give it a command line argument of file.txt. That could be any file name that you want. And what happens is the data does pass all the way through from the standard output of one command to the standard input of the other, but it also falls down. You can imagine it falling down from your command line into a file called file.txt, or whatever file name you gave the T command. So that's how the T command works in theory. This is how this graphic works. Let's go ahead and see it work in practice. Okay, so now that you understand how the T command works, let's just have a quick refresher of our command pipeline. We had the date command, which gives us a whole bunch of information about our system's clock, and we wanted to cut out the Monday or whatever day of the week it actually is. Okay, so we take the date command and we piped it into the cut command. Now we notice that the data is broken up into columns that are separated by spaces. So we say, hey, cut command, we have a delimiter that's a space. The data is delimited by spaces, and we want the first column, or as the cut command calls it, the first field, and that gives us the day of the week, which in this case is Monday. Now the challenge was we want to not only have that come out, we also want to save the entire date, okay, into a file called fulldate.txt. Okay, so here's how we would do that. I'm going to press the up arrow key to get where we got before. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze in here the T command. Okay, now the T command is going to put one of those like T-junctions in our pipeline. You need to imagine it in your head, okay? So what's going to happen is the data is going to pass all the way through the pipeline horizontally. So it's going to pass from the date command standard output and go into the standard input of the cut command. So it's going to flow straight the way through. But now what the T command is going to do is it's going to allow us to save the data vertically downwards. So you can imagine it being like a big letter T, okay, like a big T junction. The data is going to go downwards into the file called fulldate.txt. Okay, so here we are. The data is going to go horizontally down. Oops, I've opened a new terminal. My bad. That is going to go horizontally across. Okay, and it's also going to go vertically downwards into a file called fulldate.txt. Okay, so when we do that, we see that the output of the day of the week has still happened because that was passed through the cut command, and the cut command spit it out to its standard output, which is still connected to our terminal. But when we open up our file explorer, we can see that now we have a file called fulldate.txt. I deleted all of the other ones we had before, so we were starting afresh, and now we have fulldate.txt. Now when I open that, well, hey, we can actually see that all of the data has been indeed saved in a file called fulldate.txt. Isn't that awesome? That's proper cool, right? So what happened was the date command spat out all of its information all the way across the pipeline. And when it got to the T command just took a snapshot of the data in the pipeline and passed it down into a file called fulldate.txt. So that file contains all of the data that's coming out of the date command. Okay, but then the data was passed on into the cut command, which did some processing, and that spat out the day of the week, which in this case was Monday. Now I've got a quick challenge for you, okay? And I think you can do it. What I want you to do is I want you to, instead of having the day of the week spit out to the terminal, I want you to see if you can figure out how you can use redirection to actually cause that data to be saved in a file called today.txt. Okay, so instead of having the day of the week be spat out to the terminal, I want you to have it saved in a file called today.txt. But also you still need to have the T command in here. So I want you to press the upper arrow key to get what you've got before, and now do the redirection. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video now and then come back and see how you did. How'd you manage it? Did you do it? Well, this is how I'd go about it, right? So I would just, right at the end here, because here's where the data is actually coming out from, I would just have a redirection from standard output into a file called today.txt. And it's literally just that simple, okay? So once we've done that, if I go ahead and press enter, we can see that when we open up our file commander here, we've now also got a file called today.txt, and inside there it has saved the data, the day of the week, which in this case was Monday. Let me delete both files just so we can see this in all of its glory. We've got no files. I'm going to press the up arrow key, press enter, and when we take a look, haha, we've actually managed to save all the data into fulldate.txt, and we've also managed to save just what we wanted using redirection into today.txt. Isn't that awesome, right? That's really awesome. I think so anyway. So what we've got here is the T command basically takes a snapshot of the data that's flowing through the pipe at that point and saves it in a file that that you give it, okay? And then redirection will also do the same, but once you've redirected standard output, you can no longer pass it down the pipe, okay? So that's why we use the T command. The T command allows standard output to continue flowing down the pipe, but also allows you to effectively redirect it to a file and take a snapshot so that it's saved there. So another way of saying that is that once you've done redirection, you can't do any more piping. Okay, so once you've redirected standard output, like we have here in the today.txt, okay, we can no longer do any more piping down a pipeline. I'm just going to maximize the terminal. Once we've done this redirection to today.txt, that's the end of our piping days. But what we could do if we wanted to save all the data in today.txt but continue the pipeline, then that's when the T command would come in. Okay, so we do, for example, today.txt in the T command, and now we can continue to pipe. Okay, so just again, if you do redirection of standard output, that means no more piping. If you want to take a snapshot but continue piping, that's when you use the T command. And now I could continue piping on down. Okay, so I wanted to also cover the xargs command in this video, but I think we're pushing it for time here. I hope that has made it clear what the T command is. In final summary here for the T command allows you to save a snapshot of the data and continue doing your piping, whereas just using redirection will save a snapshot of the data, but you can no longer do any piping. So if you want to keep building your pipeline but keep a snapshot of the data, use the T command instead. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the xargs command, which is a really powerful command that allows you to turn your piped data into command line arguments. Ooh, okay, so let's go ahead and I'll see you there in the next video.